Welcome to Coffee, Culture, and the Capital with Sophia and Greg.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee, Culture, and the Capital. Today, we are going to dive into a little bit about the California March for Life, as well as two bills that if you come to the California March for Life, we are hoping to send you off to lobby to the state capitol. We're going to run through those today. You will learn about them more in depth at the March for Life as well. So if you are coming for the March for Life, definitely get your notepad out. Be ready to learn about these bills. But even if you're not, this is still important information to learn. And we're going to dive a little bit into what is happening with PRISM training, what teachers are being told by the state of California, what happened with Supreme Court cases. But before we dive off, Greg, what do you have for your coffee today?
You know, I have a special mug that I'm using in light of the fact that we're going to have a fabulous march coming up. So that's why I got my March for Life mug with my coffee.
There you go. I have a little shaker cup, I don't know, like a blender bottle thing, and I just have electrolytes today, but I will be getting a coffee soon. I will be needing that. But with that, let's dive into the California March for Life.
We are so excited for that to be on Monday, March 16th, and to hopefully see so many of you guys all out there at the California March for Life. We are actually going to be lobbying on two positive, life-affirming bills. And so, Greg, can you walk us through what those bills are?
Right, and these bills are similar. And you know, as Christians, we believe that life starts at conception and that there's no difference in the value of a human being right before birth or right after birth. All of life is sacred and needs protecting. And so these particular bills are dealing with a law that has been around a while in California. It's called the California Safely Surrendered Baby Law. And you know, back about 20 years ago, 2001, there was an issue with lots of little babies being abandoned right after birth. And people were trying to come up with solutions like, why would a mother simply abandon their baby in a bathroom, in a park, you know, and leave it on someone's out exposed? And so this is not just happening here, it's happening around the world. And so various folks came up with some solutions. And one of the solutions they came up with is we need to change the law so that it allows a mother who feels desperate, who doesn't want anybody to know that they had a child, to safely surrender that child to a place of safety, maybe a hospital, maybe a fire station. And so the laws changed and allowed a mother, if they abandoned their baby, not abandoned, but they go to a hospital and they just hand the baby over. And if you do that within 72 hours, or you go to a fire station, you just hand the baby to the one of the firefighters, then you would not be charged with abandonment, right? And so that baby's been on, that law has been on the books since that law was passed. 1,400 infants have been safely surrendered in California. But as these bills have passed around the state, they started to adjust them a little bit, and that's what these two bills are about. They're adjusting the bills a little bit to make sure that a mother has every opportunity, if she's feeling desperate and she is tempted to just leave the baby on a bench somewhere, that she knows that she's got some options. And so the first bill is AB 1628, and this simply extends the time, the surrender window from 72 hours after birth till 30 days. And so a mother could also simply go to a fire station or a hospital and surrender the child, and there would be no charges against her for abandonment up to 30 days. Now, that's one bill. So, and that's authored by Michelle Rodriguez, actually a Democrat out of Los Angeles. Now, the second bill is AB 2073. And this bill is allowing hospitals and fire stations to create something they call baby boxes. Women are still afraid to turn their child over to someone if they have to face the actual person they're giving the child to. So to do this completely anonymously, they are allowing women to put these little babies in climate-controlled little containers like incubators and they kind of work. They pop out of the front of a building, and they're climate controlled, and you put your baby in this little incubator and you close the box, and instantly someone on the other side, these are monitored 24 hours a day, and the baby is safely inside, and someone comes and rescues this child. Now, these are like last resort things. We ultimately want women to be, giving over their child to, somebody face to face. But if they aren't willing to do that, they call them safe haven boxes. There's 400 of them around the country already, and it's been going on for 10 years. And so lives are being saved because of this. And there was even a documentary I saw in Korea about this. So those are the two bills that we are supporting, and we are sending folks off to the Capitol, which the Capitol offices, which is pretty darn close to where the Capitol is, and talking to your legislators.
Yes, amazing. And if you come to the California March for Life, we will talk about those bills during the rally, which is at noon on Monday, March 16th. We will have printouts of information, of talking points, what the bills look like, and even a leave behind to leave with the legislator. We're going to have addresses for you on how to get to the offices. We make it so easy, so simple, so clear. So do not be overwhelmed by it. Come to the March for Life on Monday, March 16th. We have the prayer and worship rally at 11, the March for Life rally at noon. We are going to March for Life at 1, and then you can go to the Capitol offices afterwards. But I just want to go through real quickly a couple of the pro-abortion bills Governor Newsom signed into law in 2022 after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We're just going to read through some of these real quick because I want you guys to have a full understanding of how pro-abortion the California legislature is. So we had AB 2223, which prohibits investigations into fetal death after 20 weeks, even if a coroner sees evidence of foul play, such as drugs in the baby's system and self-induced or criminal abortions. We had AB 1242, which prohibits California law enforcement from assisting or cooperating with other states' abortion-related investigations. SB 1375 would lower health standards for abortions by authorizing nurse practitioners and nurse midwives to perform first trimester abortions without the supervision of a physician. AB 1918 sets up scholarships for medical students and loan repayments for graduates who commit to 3 years as an abortionist in California. AB 2586 created a working group to make recommendations to decrease barriers to abortion access. SB 245 requires all health insurance policies to cover abortions with no copayments or deductibles. AB 2091 prohibits medical information pertaining to abortions from being shared with other states. AB 204 allocates $20 million of California taxpayer dollars for women from other states to travel to California to receive an abortion. And SB 1142 will cover the costs for pregnant mothers to come from out of state to California for abortions, including airfare, hotels, Ubers to and from the abortion clinic, and worst of all, will cover the cost to have their child babysat in one room, while simultaneously covering the cost to end the life of the sibling in the other room. And those are just some of the bills that were signed into law in 2022. There have been more pro-abortion bills signed in 2023, 2024, 2025. And I know that may be shocking to you guys to hear some of those things, but you need to be aware, Christians need to be aware of what is happening at the California Capitol, and that is the raw, real truth about what is happening. And so if you have more information on any of those bills from 2022, any of the life issues, you can always head to californiafamily.org to learn more, to read our articles and everything like that. Greg, the issue of life isn't the only biblical issue that is under attack at the state capitol. And we are seeing a real push lately on the kind of the attack of teachers and things they're being forced into to have to learn about or take trainings on. There's something called PRISM training. So can you walk us through what is happening with that?
You might have noticed, if you are involved in public education at all, that the schools are trying to become very welcoming to kids who identify as transgender. Not just welcoming, they're almost encouraging kids to identify as different genders. This is introduced in curriculum at very early ages. No longer do our kids to think that their sex is determined by their biology, but now their sex is self-determined. They get to pick what their gender is, and it's not just male or female. They assess their feelings and their desires, and they could be any number of different genders that are being altered and created at all times. And so teachers are being told that they must create a safe environment for these kids, which means they, in order to create a safe environment, they mean you must affirm whatever gender identities a kid has, right? And this has become a big issue because there are Christian teachers who have beliefs about sex, that it's only determined by your biology. And then you have parents who believe the same thing, and the Supreme Court and our Constitution has put parents ultimately in charge in the raising and upbringing of their kids. And just recently, there have been Supreme Court decisions that have affirmed that schools are not to undermine the relationship between parents and kids. Schools are not to undermine the ability of a parent to pass along their beliefs to their children. And so just recently, the Supreme Court, there were 2 teachers in Escondido who were told that they would have to secretly transition kids. This particular middle schooler teacher, she had 7 students who identified as trans. So she was being required to lie to the parents, because she would have to call the kid by their real name and use their real pronouns when they talk to the parent. But then when they got to school, they'd have to flip and use the kid's new name and the new pronoun. They said, we can't do this. This violates not only our faith, it violates, we're not participating in taking away the parental rights of these parents. And so they sued. The judge decided in their favor. And then it became a class action lawsuit back in 2 months ago, in December, or 3 months ago. It was a class action suit, meaning this policy that not only the Attorney General, the Department of Ed, they were telling teachers they must affirm a kid's chosen gender identity, and parents, it didn't really matter what they thought. The judge said no. Of course, it was appealed to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit stopped that judge's ruling. But the Supreme Court, just a couple weeks ago, said nope, parents' rights were being violated, and the original judge's decision is in force. Now, so what this means is that schools can no longer socially transition kids without their parents' consent or knowledge. Now we get to the training. This year, AB 5, this is a brand new law that requires every teacher, every certified employee, a certificate employee at a school must go through called PRISM training. It's an hour of LGBT indoctrination. And I just wanted to show you that this is real. I wanted to show you and read you some of the curriculum lessons that I have in front of me regarding what teachers are being told. Even though the Supreme Court now says you can't socially transition a kid, you can't change their gender or their name without parental consent. So you're ready. Any comments so far, Sophia? I know I've been rambling there a little bit.
I think it's important for anyone that's listening right now to everything Greg is about to read to you guys and show you guys to know that this isn't just happening in one area. This is happening across California. This is happening to your teachers, the teachers that your students have. And so it is important to be aware that even if you feel like my little city's safe or my community is safe, that doesn't mean that this indoctrination hasn't reached there yet. So Greg,
Right.
let's hear what is being said.
Right. So here's course. This is the first course, and there's 6 courses. And I got access to these courses, so I took them just a couple days ago. And here's what it says about, here's what it's teaching teachers about what do you do if you misgender someone? And they say it's important to be intentional with the way you use pronouns as we all work together to create a more inclusive environment. So you're supposed to, it says, do your best not to center it around yourself and your own level of discomfort. Deliberately misgendering anyone can cause serious harm and is considered harassment. Now, and then they quote a law, California Education Code, section 220, forbids any form of discrimination in public schools or non-religious private schools. It extends protection not only to sexual orientation, but to gender identity and gender expression. So how the educators, the Department of Ed and this training is interpreting no discrimination based on gender identity means you must use the pronoun and name they want. Otherwise, it's illegal harassment. Now, the Supreme Court is now going to say different because you can't use a new name without the parents being involved, right? So that's a contradiction. It also talks about dead naming. Have you ever heard of dead naming, Sophia?
You know, dead naming is such an interesting thing that people get all up in arms about. And I don't think most parents know about dead naming, Greg.
Well, here's what the lesson on dead naming that the teachers are now learning. It says dead naming refers to the practice of calling a transgender or non-binary individual by a name that they were assigned at birth. A name they were assigned at birth. Well, yeah, who assigned? The parent named the child, right? Now, rather than the name they have chosen to affirm their gender identity. So to dead name someone is to use their real name that their parents gave them. So if a kid's in the class and he says, yeah, I know my parents named me, Robert, but I'm now Roberta, right? So you must, that's my new name. So if the teacher, knowing the parent doesn't agree with this, uses Robert, then the kid, you've just dead named the kid, right? And according to the new training, it says an educational, it says respecting a student's chosen name is essential for fostering an inclusive and supportive educational environment, and making the avoidance of dead naming is a critical practice for educators, right? So that violates parental rights right there, right?
You know, you said the Supreme Court says something different. So when it comes to the Supreme Court and California state law, who gets the overall final say?
Well, we live in a country, we are a state, and those states are ultimately accountable to the U.S. Constitution. We are not allowed to pass laws that violate that U.S. Constitution. And so what the Supreme Court says the law of the land is the law of the land. And then I know we got to close soon, but it also, there's training on what happens if a young person, another student, dead names another student. The teacher is told to stop it, to name it, and to claim it. So they're supposed to say, it gives a text here if somebody is dead naming someone else. I'm going to stop you right there because what you are saying is hurtful. So not only are your kids going to be required, teachers are required to affirm a kid's gender identity, so are all the students around them. So,
and it's so important to recognize, Christians, that in the first chapter of the first book of the Bible, Genesis 1:27, we are told that God made us male and female, and he made us in his image. It's not God made you male and female, but you can mess that up and change that however you would like. He made us male and female, and we need to be able to stand for the truth of the Bible. We need to recognize that using fake names, using incorrect pronouns, all these different things for children is actually harmful and actually goes against scripture. It goes against how God created us. And who are we to think that we have a better way of loving people than God's way? And so we need to make sure we stand for truth. We need to make sure We continue to stand for what the Bible says. And if you are listening to this and you want to know more about this, more about what is happening at the California Capitol, and more about how you can get involved to stand for biblical values, you can head to californiafamily.org. You can read our articles. You can check out our bill watch list. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter to get the lay of the land every week of California. You can also head to any podcast platform and YouTube to watch Coffee, Culture, and the Capitol with Sophia and Greg, where we break down almost weekly what is happening at the state capitol. And then you can follow along with what California Family Council is doing on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and X at California Family Council. But with that, we are hoping to see you guys all so soon at the California March for Life on Monday, March 16th at the state capitol. Learn more at californiafamily.org/march for life.